if I can pull this all off and I can record everywhere so that you can watch it wherever you decide to watch it, all right? So, but just as a little bit of a preamble here, I wanted to talk about this. By the way, let me just check and see if you're hearing me. You guys hearing me? Guys hearing me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, let me put it on lecture mode for a second. All right. One of the things that I noticed that was coming up a lot in what we were talking about here is, Lee, you actually brought it up and made me really think about it. I just think we keep trying to go to these esoteric subjects in this business, and we're not going back to the basics. And when it comes to the basics, presentation is a key part of this. And I'm going to hit 2 beats here today and see where it takes us. One, I recognized my responsibility to my whole entire group at Griffin Realty Group to be a better leader. As I prepare for the meeting at the end of the month, I recognize that leadership is the number one thing. And it's really about self-leadership, right? It's not just about meaning you're going to lead other people. It's, can you lead yourself? Can you lead yourself? The right leader. And in Peter Drucker's work, in his book, his body of work, The Effective Executive, he talks about the leader does the right things. The manager does things right. So we have to hit this beat not just on management, but we have to really talk about this whole concept of getting ourselves to a point where we're saying, all right, look, are we leading ourselves to do the right things? And how do you know that, right? So I think ultimately that's the system. You have to go looking for a system and figure out, what is that? What is that system really? Like, how do we even know we're doing the right things? It's a toughie. Right? But for 7 years now, I've been obsessed with that. And I think we're beginning to bubble up those universal things on how the business works. Okay. This is not us just deciding that we'll come up with it, this little group, but it's being good observers of how a business actually works. And that's often dictated to you by the marketplace. In other words, how does a seller go through the process? How does a buyer go through the process? You have to observe that. A good leader sits back and observes how these things really work. So I noticed that on the helpline, as we were going through these micro things, we get frustrated, we get mad, we get upset, and all those things happen to each one of us. But as I took a step back when I was looking at what Lee was, upset about, as was I, the same thing, right? So I sat back and said, okay, so what is it that I'm trying to, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to get into, pay attention to, and do, right? When it comes to watching this process with Lee and myself and getting above it. Well, I think what happened is I recognized again this cognitive distortion thing. I talk about this at the conference, but I want to talk about it every time here. You can tend to get yourself to a point where you get way out of whack, okay? You get way out of whack. Hey, Laura, did you start a presentation or something? Or is this my thing just going haywire? Laura, are you there? All right. Sorry, guys. I do not know what's going on here. Just hoping that, let me just see if you can, tell me if you can see my screen when I get going here. Can you see my screen there? I don't know what's going on. I'm having some technical difficulties. I got distracted. Yes? You see a check mark on a GoToMeeting? Oh, I got you. You can't talk to me because I got you on. Okay. I'll leave the mics open. Okay. Can you guys see me? Yes? No?
Yeah.
All right. I'm getting myself frustrated and pissed off here. So let me calm down. Take a breath. Get this back together. Okay. The key here is the listing side of the business is everything. And the right thing to do is to obsess, okay, over the listing side. And it's to obsess over the process of getting the listing. All this hard work to go out and get these listings only to not get them is damaging in a lot of ways. It's damaging to your brain. It's damaging to the system. You get pissed off and you get cognitive distortions and you make comments, okay? You make comments like we all are starting to make. That maybe I'm not going to give away this stuff anymore, all that kind of stuff, right? That's where it goes awry as a leader. So I want to calm it down here today. And what I promised you the other day, what we never got to, was I wanted to hit the beats with you of a listing presentation? Karen, I know you're on Facebook. You keep asking me this. People ask me this all the time. And Lee is an advanced, I guess, member where he's in these houses and he's making these things happen and making distinctions of where it goes awry. And I recognized the other day that it was a simple tweak in a systematic approach that I thought was missing. And that's all that we need to do here. Get the major rocks in the jar. Then when things don't work out, you can figure out how to fix them much easier. Okay. Hey, Lee, your mic is always squelchy, but I'm going to open it up. Okay. I'm going to have to get you. You're going to have to break for it. You have to spend, buddy. Get yourself a new mic. All right. Here we go. Lee, the beats. Karen Shaw, the beats. These are the beats that are very important to remember. And Laura, your mic was super loud too. I don't know what's going on here today. It's just bad mojo here today. Everybody just try to listen and participate because I know people are all going to come on late today, right? So the bottom line is the very first beat that we get is the greeting at the door, okay? It's very important. It sets you up and you basically are just saying to people, thank you for having me, okay? Thank you for having me. That's beat number one. I mean, you might think I'm crazy doing this, but I'm telling you, if you just go through this high and you don't set this up, hey, thank you very much for having me over to the house. I don't think you're in the right mindset. The next thing is what I call the nickel tour. And I call it the nickel tour because that's just my language, but it's also known as the quick tour. In other words, would you mind taking me for the quick tour of the property before we sit down and talk about it? You go through that. And again, the quick tour tries to help you avoid being caught up, in this long drawn out tour. Okay. Because that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the quick tour so that we can get through the property. The number one thing in this whole process is to find out what kind of property do we have? What is the condition of the property? Okay. What is it? And we have to get that through there and just keep going through. Now, remember, some notes during that, I'm just going to put down complimentary, right? That's the number one thing. You must be complimentary. Everybody hearing me okay? Just another mic check, so I'm making sure I'm past my technical difficulty today. Yeah, we good?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Supposed to be anything?
What's that, Alan?
Are we supposed to be seeing anything other than just who the callers are?
Not at the moment, but we'll check into that in a second, okay? So let me just see. Okay. I'll just double. I'll just double check that. I'll bring up the TRC infographic so that we have it. I don't know what happened here today, but man, the mojo in Boston today is not good. Okay, I'll bring that up so you have.
Leave that hand for spinning the wheel.
I know, dude. I'll tell you what, man. It's I came up here to the office share, and usually it's really good, but I don't know what's going on here today. So let me just pull something up so I have a screensaver so you can see it. All right. Bear with me. I swear I'm going to get through this call today. I swear I'm going to. Okay, here we go. All right, Alan, just to check on that. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, off we go. All right, so the bottom line here is that when you get into this whole conversion process, you're into the sellers. And now you're in the house, which is the pivotal moment. All of this money spent, all of this conversion time, all of the mistakes that are happening in all those places, you really have to almost be scared that you're going to screw this up in the house and you're going to miss something, okay? Or whomever is going out there. So the greeting, thank you for having me. The nickel tour is the quick tour. You must be complimentary during this tour. You must look for the positive attributes of this property and let them know. The number one thing that I have learned through this process is that most agents are strangely non-complimentary, including really good ones. They start immediately telling the seller what's wrong with it and what they need to do to sell it. Absolutely, in my not so humble opinion in that moment, it's the wrong thing to do. You take note of the fix-ups, okay? You take note of those. because we have a 7-step system that's going to be there. And I know Paul Cantu told me he doesn't follow it. I would highly recommend, as I did to him, you do, because I got better when I got systematic, because it's not about you selling like a savant. It's about you getting a system that eventually, like, and Laura, you're going to speak to this when I come back to you. You're going to tell me what it was like to do this without me the other day, because I haven't downloaded on that. So the nickel tour is the quick tour, complimentary, taking note of fix-ups. Then is the sit down, okay? So the sit down, the notes are across from all decision makers. Okay, that's the next beat here. All decision makers, across from them, preferably at a dining table or something like that, where you can really spread things out. Oftentimes I will say, I want to spread things out. So I'm going to put that little note there for myself. Okay, that's just my talking point. Now, the next beat is, why are you selling? Now, you have this, most of you, if you have done this correctly, with the seller qualifying questionnaire. This is what ties back into your conversion process. So when you go backwards into conversion and you begin to take a look at this, if you don't ask the questions that set you up for this moment, shame, 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 shame on you. And if your telemarketing crew doesn't sit still and get this right, shame on you for not being a good leader of them and explaining to them how it connects to the moment when you're in the house, right? So why are you selling? Gets them into telling their story. This is going to reveal you're listening for true motivation, okay? Because they might be revealing to you. Now, again, telemarketing is a very difficult job. We all know that. We know that the telemarketer is trying to, in a very short period of time, establish motivation and timing. They may not be able to get it exactly because there's still not that trust in the process. So we have this moment of true motivation that we have to really try to see, why are you selling? What is the reason? Okay. And almost it's okay to reiterate the 1 to 10 question on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated? To dig into those same questions. Why are you selling it? How motivated? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated? Because you're now rooting them in this conversation face to face, which is a huge deal. Okay. So why are you selling? True motivation, 1 to 10. Next, 7 steps. Okay. This is your unique selling proposition moment. I want to express this to you, that this beat. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm into the 5th beat at a listing presentation, okay? The 5th beat. So I come down to this now, and I'm looking at 7 steps. And again, I say this is your unique selling proposition that you better buy into. You have to have some plan that you buy into that makes you unique. I mean, it's stunning to me. I've asked several of you what makes you unique, and you start to babble the same shit that everybody else does. Oh, I have integrity. I work hard. It's crazy what human default really does, and that is not unique, and it is not good enough. So you really have to have this, the concept of this plan in your head, that this is your uniqueness. This is the productization of your, your service. It's everything. So you need to be able to get the 7 steps down. Now, I recommend, hey, Laura, can you mute the mic? I'm hearing some background there. Okay. So the 7 steps,
yep.
Thank you. The 7 steps unique selling proposition here has to be your, this idea that this is the guidance. So the language that's used at this moment in time can be what you want it to be, but you want to have more so a belief at step 5. This is your crescendo moment, okay? So we're rising up in this moment to say, okay, I'd like to take you through my strategy. Own that, my strategy for guiding you through this process. Whatever feels right to get you rooted in this and your belief system, this is where you begin to get judged. Now, I do not recommend anymore that this is a complicated moment. In fact, Anita Tarapore said to me that one of the first reasons she went to Proctor was because he gave her a buyer presentation she could use. Now she goes in with the 2 simple infographics, and she says it's the next evolution. Simplification is evolution. So she believes that when she sits down and simplifies it with just an infographic and walks a buyer or seller, in this case today, through it, it's much more powerful. It's easier on her, which takes the pressure off of her to try to be some amazing presenter. And it's easier for the consumer to consume what it is exactly that they're looking at. Okay, questions so far. I'm going to take a pause there for a second, and I want to get some questions there. Lee, you can jump in here too, since I'm really kind of coming back to you on this whole thing.
Yeah, I like to go through the beats because I think that's kind of a good outline to, once you walk in the door, to, be in and out and then hit your beats at the same time.
Yep. And again, Lee, I think this is going to set you up better for that moment, to overcome that moment that sort of tripped you up a little bit, right? And I think you'll see the madness, the method to the madness when I get here. So let me just pull this up so everybody has that visual. Alan, you seeing me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the 7-point strategy, and again, this is productization. This is an information product. We have taken the 7 steps and we have made it this infographic. I highly recommend you understand that this is a majorly glorified business card too. I'm showing you the company version, but there are other versions where there is the picture. So you see where it says Griffin Realty Group. That's a business card. Okay, I think Cantu's done one. I can look for John's and other people's. I think I might have a version. Laura, if you have my version, you can send it to me. I'll open it. But down here is your business card stuff. So that this is a tremendously fabulous leave behind. Because what you're leaving behind is the strategy summary plus who you are and gave it to them. So if you are in a competitive situation, this one piece reminds them of what made you unique. This one piece. Okay. Now remember, this was preceded by something that was much more in-depth, had more value to it as an information product, meaning the magazine version of this. But that was presumably mailed to them as a pre-marketing material. If you never had the chance to mail to them and you had to go tomorrow morning, you could bring the magazine, but this is still the implement in step 5 that you break out and you slide across the table so that they're staring at it. Okay, it is the simplest. This is an Einstein moment. This is the simplest articulation of your unique selling proposition, which is the guidance in the order of the process you put them through. That's unique, extremely. You'll be in a vacuum because nobody's doing something this clearly or in exactly this order as their 5th step, by the way. Okay, so we slide it across the table and we go through it. Now, this doesn't have to be long. Now, remember all this time that you've had. You've had a greeting moment at the door. You've taken the nickel tour or the quick tour. Now, if it's a big property, it could take some time. If it's a condo, maybe you're just kind of pointing to things and, small little place. I don't know what that looks like, but you want to be complimentary and you want to take note of the fix-ups. Then the sit down is where can we sit down? And now, again, if it's not a perfect world, don't worry about it. But you want to be eye to eye wherever possible. And you want to be able to have a table or something in between you where you can lay this out facing them so that they're going to be the student looking down at the stuff that you're pointing to and instructing them. Extremely important. Okay. Why are you selling again? Can you tell me that? I know when you were talking to Autumn, you said this. Could you tell me a little bit more about it? Great. On a scale of 1 to 10, would you say that you're, where are you at? Again, all set up. Great. Let me take you through my strategy here. And I want you to understand the order of things. Now, again, you're claiming the strategy, but what you're essentially doing is being the first one to explain to them the major steps in the order of selling a property. Now, a lot of people pull away and back off of pricing, right? Huge mistake. Because we all know, and when you hide how things really happen, you have an inauthentic moment immediately. We all know as professional real estate agents that price is the number one factor. Tell them that. Say, before I get started, I'm not going to pull the punch. Price is the number one factor. It matters a lot. I know there'll be questions about marketing, but with the wrong price, marketing doesn't matter. That's the kind of language I would use right there. The next beat is good news. When I get into the math tonight, okay, I'm alluding to another step down the road. When I get into the math tonight, you're going to see the range within which your property could be. The good news is you'll be able to move up in that range by discussing with me tonight how to recondition the property or get it ready. Or if you don't want to do anything or can't afford to do it, you wouldn't say that explicitly to them, but that's what you're thinking, then we'll deal with that and we'll price things out. Then ultimately, once that's all done, we'll end up trying to either move your furniture around or bring in a real professional stager. Now that depends on what marketplace you're in. If staging is standard fare, say in California, and you have to deal with it, well then deal with it. Okay? Deal straight down the barrel with it and say, we pay for staging, we have a stager on board. That should be part of your proposition right there. In my case, in many cases, I don't need that. But I would be fully prepared to go deep into that if it's your marketplace. Okay. Otherwise, you can tell them how to declutter, move their furniture around, to open things up. You'll know by looking at it. Then and only then, I say, can we get into marketing? And then we have a second infographic, but I'm not going to get into that right at the moment. But I would have that in my package for you all. I want you to understand this beat first at the higher level. You should be hey guys, someone's really beating on your mic. So you should be able to understand yourselves with me today. Marketing has two beats. Once all of this stuff, the professional photography has been taken, okay? So we have to get the condition and staging first, get the best day, memorialize that moment. Then we have the digital footprint that we can start to market. So syndication is the basic. We put you up into MLS and you syndicate everywhere. Problem is, you just became a fly speck in the internet ocean, but you will be on the Zillows, the Redfins, all my competitors, but more importantly, my website, where we begin our push marketing formula. We will make you a featured property and we will push you around social, and we will do the lowest of tech things that are highly effective, like open houses. Boom. That's a snippet of what marketing is all about. If you could get that out of your mouth in the hood of a car because somebody put you under pressure to say this, you're done. I'm not going to get into the deep dive until we get into the Q&A portion. Next, communication is actually the market-making stage. This is where the money's made. This is where the seller finds the truth out about how they're doing. We're very good at this. We're very good communicators in that market-making phase, meaning we use systems like showing time. We poll the agents for feedback. We will find out why they didn't make an offer. However, if nobody's coming at all, meaning the co-brokes are 90% of the time, meaning one company to the next company is the very typical way that this business works, no matter what agency told you differently. So we have to communicate well with those co-brokes to find out what is happening, get you the feedback, whether you like it or not, so you know where you stand and you know what you're losing out to, so that we can go back up and check out, do we need a pricing, condition, or staging adjustment? Because if we have people coming in the communication stage, the marketing's working fine. Next, when we get into the math tonight, we're going to talk about how we use that math to make the best case for you. Similar to the way that an attorney uses evidence to make the best case for the client, we do the same with math, which you're going to see. Then ultimately, after all this work, crossing T's, dotting I's, and dealing with the most frenetic stage called closing, we bring in specialists to help us cross the T's, dot the I's, so that we are available for the emotional breakdowns and the problem solving. Boom, I'm done, okay? And for the sake of this, lecture piece of this, I'm moving off. Keep your questions there. Next, the next question is, this is the key point right here, I believe, that is an early one, okay? And I'm going to ask this question again, but this is where I think Lee, in what he brought up on the helpline, is there anything I didn't cover that's important to you, okay? Here's the first spot where you could put this to make them read their mind out loud. And we're going to ask that question a couple of times. Here's the one spot I was thinking about since the helpline that it should be asked. This is your strategy. This is the way you take them through it. But there's something that, see, this is intended to try to educate them and answer most of the frequently asked questions. You understand that? Like, there's frequently asked questions around all of this. But you're inevitably going to lose them along the way some here. You're inevitably not going to cover something that they're thinking. So just ask, is there anything in this process I just explained to you that's important to you that I didn't cover? Boom, I'm done. Next. Okay, great. Let's move on to the math. So this is where I break out the math. I'm going to say stage number 6 is the math. And I say math because I don't want you talking about comparable sales. I can't believe how many of our sellers, as we're getting more and more into this, keep saying, well, that doesn't compare to my house. I actually said to a seller the other night, I don't really believe in the word comparable sales. I don't believe any house is like the next, any condo is like the next, I told him. I believe that there's data that needs to be looked at to help me make the market. That's all I believe in. So when we send you this stuff, we're looking at the data and we're looking at how the features affect that data and what that means as far as price. So I'm not going to get into the lecture about how I put this math together, but remember they're sitting across from me. I know how many decision makers will be in the house, and I have math for each of them to process this separately. Okay? Everybody gets their own math. Next, and I'll open this up in the Q&A department. We can look at a fresh one that I just did. The math is there. I go through the math, and now remember, going all the way back again to the questionnaire, I know what they think the property is worth. So I have this analysis that is either supporting that or not. Most of the time, they're probably pretty close to being in it, but most of them are going to tickle the top end of the range. Okay? So I'm going to be looking at this, trying to lead them to the most reasonable conclusion that I want them to make. So my beat here is lead them to a better conclusion about price. Okay? Lead them. Do not tell them. Do not play pricing it right bingo and let them force you into saying a price. You keep them working here. You keep them leading. You lead the witness. Don't just let them bail out on you. Okay, I don't let you all bail out on me. Don't you let them bail out. You're teaching them how to come to their own conclusion, and they will support what they help create. If you dictate to them, they're less supportive. Remember that. I'm going to repeat what I just said. They will support what they help create. So if they help create the asking price with you through the proper evidence, through digging in, working, sweating with you at the table, they're more likely to support it. If not, they're more likely to get another opinion and blow you off and never call you back again. That's a key point. Really, really key point here as I'm going through it, because I think that's also part and parcel in Lee's example. Next, at the math, we get there. Sometimes they'll ask me at that moment in time, how much does this all cost? In other words, what's your commission? So the next thing we've done is we've realized that instead of just dealing with commission, which puts you on a defensive mode, we've begun to talk directly about a net sheet. So one of the evolutions in this beat is beat number 7 is a net sheet. So we pre-produce it. And you'll say to me, well, how do you do that if you don't really know because you haven't been there? We will cheat towards sort of the middle to low end. So we're going to come up with conservative. Laura, if you don't mind taking a note down, MRG needs to make a blank third column so that we can handwrite math still. So we don't have just 2, we need a third column. I'll tell you what I mean by that right now. 1 is I'm going to put it as low as I possibly can to anchor it. 2 is I'm going to put it somewhere probably medium to good, and then 3 is if they have a freaking conniption on me, like one guy did, I've got a blank column where I can cheat some other math, but I've still done my job in rooting them towards reality on the left side. And here's what I find. When you do a net sheet for somebody, which includes all the cost, including your big fat commission in there, you write it right down. Most of you will be scared. You'll think, oh my gosh. No, 95% of the time, the net sheet is a positive experience for the seller. 95% of the time, the net sheet is a positive experience for the seller, because most people are making this decision. And why they default to commission, because they're making this decision to sell emotionally and they have no idea how the process works. They absolutely have no idea what a net sheet even looks like. And they tend to overestimate the cost and underestimate what they walk away with. So when they see this huge, especially, unless they're upside down, of course, or they're really tight for real, when they see this huge number at the bottom that they're going to walk away with, most people have a positive experience and they don't make a big deal of my commission. Now, of course, those that are still money paradigms, they've just been walked through this whole thing, and I will reveal it. Okay? So now I'm done. I have given them the complete empowerment about the process, how it all works, the math, and what they'll walk away with. So now is that moment where we have this sort of, I call it my Wall Street close that I finally learned, right? Once upon a time, I was trying to apply for these jobs and I had this great resume, and here I was doing the same thing I'm doing in this business. I've got all this, 20 years worth of work and understanding chunked up to 7 steps, and I'm still losing. How can that be? Because there's a moment in time where these people are now just completely making, I would call it an impulse or an impetuous decision, because their brain has now exhausted a lot of calories to go through this process, which is precisely why I caution you. You have to do this in the least amount of talking and time that you can without stealing anything away from the process that empowers them. Let me say that again. You must do this in the least amount of time and energy so that you still give them everything without leaving anything off the table for their understanding. Why? Because if you listen to most people talk about how the brain works, which is this human sitting across from you, their animal brain can go to about 40% before it begins to shut down. Okay? So you have to be watching them across the table saying, is this person shutting down? Now, a lot of high Ds will shut down very quickly because they're kill in their heads. So ironically, that person at the high D is probably the one that needs this the quickest. They're going to make a quicker decision, and if you drag them out, the calories that they burn, they're more likely to conserve it and shut you down and not hear anything else you said and rush you out the door. That's my experience. Whereas the ones that'll take the longest would be the obvious high C, who likes this crossing of the T, dotting of the I process, okay? As long as you answer the questions. And the high I most likely has ADD and wants to talk too much about this. You need to keep moving them through it. And they will eventually like you for being a leader, okay? So the Wall Street close. I kept going down there, getting these interviews, getting blown out, till I finally realized that there were moments in time where I wasn't letting them talk about themselves and their success and their house in this case and their life in this, right? So we can refine this 7 steps till the cows come home, and we will do that. But the key here is there any reason why you don't think I would be the best choice for this job? Okay? And in my case, down on Wall Street, it was more specific. Is there any reason why you think I can't do this job? So something like that needs to be the closing question that takes all of this, because we don't know what just happened in their brain, but it brings it right down to one final beat. Is there any reason why you wouldn't choose me? Right? Because what that does is it helps them refocus, get more energy to answer this one simple question, and they can reveal to you, and it'll make them uncomfortable if they're cheating on you already, if they're already talking about somebody else, or the wife doesn't like you and the husband does, whatever it could be. This is a poignant moment to close with, okay? Because that will help them almost be obligated, not fully, but almost be obligated to deal with you in the future. If you just sort of leave this off now, and Lee, I'm going to open up the discussion with this. I think listening to your case is that you were the typical, really helpful, truly wanting to help them, passionate guy that you are, and you got into all these fix-ups and you got into it deeply, and you got too far away from this very business professional mode that you were in, more into this familiar place. Do not act familiar with these people until they're past clients. Then it's familiar and consummated. But until then, do not drop your professional guard, because I think that's the overarching thing here that we're being judged on. All right, let's go to discussion. There's my 7 beats, and I'll go back and refine these too as we discuss this. Lee, since you're on the hot seat and this was you that started this, give me some thoughts here.
Did you make that list, by the way?
I did. I just wrote it
screen
all.
wasn't moving.
I wrote it. No. I wrote it all down on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Jamie, I have
I
a
like
question when you.
Yep, hang on, Laura. Hang on.
Yep.
Go ahead, Lee.
Oh man, I just lost my train of what I was going to say.
See, Laura, you screwed him up. Is ADD.
Sorry.
Yeah, she jumped in there. She snuck up on me, man. Said, "Boo."
All right. Go ahead, Laura. Well, he's doing that. And anybody else? I want to hear from people. Got a small group today. I don't know where everybody is.
I would just like you to elaborate a little bit more on the language that you use to lead people to a listing price.
Okay. I do a lot of pointing and digging. So it's an exercise. So let me go look up one of my, would you like?
Because I, as you know, I just did a listing presentation by myself this week, and like I hit all the beats in order, but I feel what I struggled with the most is explaining the data.
Yep.
Or the math.
Okay. Tell me more. I'm listening. Why? Laura?
I don't know.
Laura, better yet, go pull up the math and I'm going to play him. We're going to role play the math out. Just go pull it up.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me, well, they all can see us, what you were talking about. Okay.
I don't have this math and email format to you because I had to do the comps myself because Serena wasn't able to do them under such short notice.
Okay. All right. Pull up one that you did where you're talking to one of our clients about price. I've pulled one up here that I'm going to talk about while you do that, and I'll come back to you. All right. So we have an agent. We have an agent who's going to join us. And he's the son of the developer that I do some big business with, and he has a friend who is with a high-end realtor in the waterfront in Boston who's been there forever. She's very good, and so his own friend doesn't have professional context about him. So what I did was I had this technical analysis done. Okay, so this particular property for Battery Wharf, all right, has been on the market for a little bit, and I think he's getting a little panicky. It's at 182 and change, and it's not moving. Now, Boston is definitely correcting. I don't know that it's way off, but it's definitely correcting, so we'll see how fast. So what I said to him was, okay, well, you're talking to a kid who's in finance, right? I'll guarantee you that these people don't necessarily have a financial formula exactly like this. In Boston, they are a little bit more sophisticated, but here's the math. So just for the effect for this guy to be able to professionalize himself in front of his friend, we did a very quick CMA. And up in Boston, it's going to be a little bit different because we have Battery Wharf. All right. So we have this assessed value of 1721750, and we have 3 data points. It's not a lot, but because it's a very specific young building, we're able to go and look at this. Right. Let's see if she's got something on the specific too. Okay, so when we go into the specific, meaning the specific size, et cetera, so you can see sold to assessed between 1.5 and 2 million and 1,200 and 1,600 square feet. So we took a price range and square footage. So what you're going to notice, that these things are pretty similar, but there's a pretty big disparity down the middle. So Laura, I would always cheat towards the average. I would just presume everybody is average to begin with, because that, especially in a market that's correcting, we don't want to cheat to high because that's a real rising tide. You want to cheat to average. So the first thing I look at is, okay, it's reasonable where they are at 1825, but the low could be as low as 17. So is 1825 or wherever they're at, 18 something, is it that far off where he can't get offers because we're moving down to the lower end of the range because we're correcting? Okay, so you'd be looking at the middle. Now, if you didn't do this analysis like this, shame on you, right? Do you mean you didn't do one of these?
No, I did. It wasn't in the black and white. I just did it in an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
I wouldn't have felt confident going there without one. So.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Good answer. So what I would say.
Do you have that template for that?
What's that?
You have a template for that?
Yep, we do. Can you just put a note to Serena? to make sure that the template gets up on Teachable?
Yep.
Hey,
Did MRG do that one?
What's that? Chris, hang on. Go ahead, Lee. What?
MRG did do that?
No, Serena did. But MRG could clean this up in a heartbeat. You just give them the file. Okay? Chris, go ahead.
I like how it looks over there.
Yep.
Yeah. Why with these analyses are you leading with DOM? It seems like you don't typically lead with DOM. Why with these did you choose to lead with? Because you're just looking at active.
I couldn't.
Well, no, you're looking at sold. So why'd you lead with DOM?
Yeah. I really couldn't care less about that, other than I'm trying to make the case. If I have to go to this math, it's a good question. If I have to go to this math, I'm only looking at success, Chris. I don't care about anything else. I don't want them, when they get to this point, telling me that the neighbor just listed this. I don't care. I'm the professional, and I'm telling you, don't waste your time looking at asking prices unless somebody's right up your tail across the street with the same kind of house and they just came on. Look at what sold that's closest to you, because that's the only thing that tells you the absolute truth, right? Even when something's pending, somebody could have gotten smoked. I don't know, right? Follow? Chris, hold on.
I'm thinking out loud.
Chris, hold on. Chris, stay in here with me. Don't put me on mute. Just stay in here. Keep a good rhythm going so I know you get your questions answered. Go ahead. Chris?
Yeah. I'm still here. Sorry, I didn't know it was my turn. But no, yeah, so I was thinking, so why are you leading with days on market? You get days on market right at the street address. Like,
I'm not. You're overthinking that. I'm not leading with that at all. People read left to right, so here's really what I'm looking for, and the sold price to assessed. You see this stuff down here? Okay, that's really what it should be. Actually, Laura, make a note, please. I'll make one adjustment since we're right here. It's the assessed value, Laura, should be right next to DOM. Okay. Assessed value shouldn't be way out here. The last column should be sold price and sold price to assessed value. That's the money. So Chris,
probably took DOM out.
Yeah, you could
I don't know
probably.
why that's in there.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't know that we have to take it out, because it shows what success did. When somebody listened to the math, that's how long it took. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
I like it in there. Chris, people read left to right is the answer, so I'm not leading with it per se. It's just a warm up to get down here where the money is. Okay? So You see, now in this case, I can come back and say, well, look, you've been on the market, for quite some time, 45 days, and you haven't sold at 1.825. So the waterfront stuff that's in that, sale price, we can look at this in a second, Chris, but there's my 3 sold prices. So now I'm in absolute. Okay, so somebody in this square footage, I got a 1596, I got a 1645, and my best is 1795. I don't have anybody at 1825. So for that square footage, you're looking to be the highest sold. You following me?
Yeah.
Laura, you following me?
Yep.
I got off of relative and I went down and said, well, what does 1825 buy? Well, truth is, less than 1825 bought some stuff. So I'd be likely to now go to the pictures. Okay. Here's the same stuff. Okay. So they got the map, because they're all going to say, where's that? What's this? Whoa, I'm better than that. I'm better. Okay, great. Calm down. That's good. Let's just go down here and we'll take a look at some of this stuff. Okay. So going back, Chris, oops, shit. Hang on.
So while you're going back, is your cloud CMA referencing the radius or the specific?
Both of them.
Or both?
Both of them. No. Two separate ones. We have to look at it 2 separate ways because we like that. So we did specific, meaning here's the price range and the square footage, and the other one's just a radius to see if it brings us anything differently. So when I come in here, I've got some pendings and sold. So here's a kid sitting here not sold, and so he's out here. Battery Wharf stuff is more out there, okay? So we can see that the Battery Wharf stuff that's, down in here, we'll take a look at this because we had the specific for Battery Wharf. So here's one at Battery Wharf that was 1645. You got me?
Right.
Okay. So I got a real sold at 1,645, and he's at 182 and change. So there's the one that's very specific. It's not only in the specific one, it's also in the radius one. So I got one good comp to hang my hat on. So now I start to go and say, let's go take a peek at the one in Battery Wharf. Okay. I'm not going to say anything about how it compares. Again, the word comparable is a very deadly word if you overuse it. You don't say that. Get rid of it. Be different from everybody else. Don't just copy them, because that's actually killing us. So, we got the pretty pictures and stuff like that of these properties. Did I go by it? Battery. Here it is. Okay.
Photos
so here it is. So hang on. So here it is. So here's the one that's sold. I've got all the data that I need. Now this is in a package that's sitting in front of them. So they're going to go in there. Now we can see this place is beautifully staged, right? Now, unfortunately in this one, and I think that this is a mistake, Laura, I think it's about more pictures than it is anything else. So we should be trying to get more pictures than wasting. See all that wasted space there? We should see if there's a 2 up where there's more pictures. Pictures are the way people judge things first. Okay?
It's either 2 or a whole page.
I know, unfortunately.
And we were taking out, it's tough.
Okay, so Chris, you see the 139,222, right? So I take a look at that, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's way less than his. So something's up here, right? We can't figure out what's up here. Now, I don't happen to have the one in front of me. We should have, the listing sheet in front of us. I'll see if I can find it quickly on MLS Pin. But you get the point there. Okay, go ahead. You guys all have some questions about this? Go ahead, questions.
I got a quick comment. What do you think about putting the square foot price on the technical analysis?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good idea. I think it's a good evolution. I think the more data-driven you can be, the better off you are, especially in a place like this where condos are more, I think the square foot, price per square foot is much more relevant in the city, right? Because they're mostly condos.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about that. It's times about that. I got an appraisal for 1,350, and we put it on the market for $1 million. And I got agents trying to tell me that it's overpriced, and I'm like, we're at $200 a foot, and the other sales around us are from $350 to $500 a foot. So tell me how we're overpriced.
Yeah, they can't argue with math.
Yeah, math is what it is. Hey, Laura, can you email me my login password for PIN? Do you know what it is?
Yep.
Okay, because I want to be able to do this. All right, what else? I'm not hearing.
I think that might be good on the technical analysis.
Okay, I'm not hearing from everybody else. I know I have a small call. Don't know what happened to everybody today. A lot of blown tires. Let me hear from everybody else on this call. There's not one of you on here that's that proficient at this, so I should hear from everybody.
Danny.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
I got 100% rate.
Yep. Hang on, Whitehead. I can hear you. Go ahead, Alan, and then Whitehead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the math is the hardest discussion to have with them because they have, when you bring out the math and you show them what's going on, sometimes they just immediately disregard it. And I guess what you've made a comment on today, which I thought was good, I guess is not to go down that rabbit trail. If they say, well, ours is better than that, is to just kind of say, well, hold on, let's just get through some of this information and then we can discuss that. I mean, because, they immediately get in this defensive mode, not always, but it's the ones I've lost, they get very defensive about the price. They don't care that this is the evidence of what's sold. They have something in their mind from a year ago, or God forbid, they have stuff in their mind from 3 years ago. And, I usually will say, well, this is the current market information, which is what, the sales are based on right now. But they get really caught up with that. And then sometimes that becomes, I'm like Lee, I get Lee's pain. I then get defensive because they're questioning my knowledge. They're questioning my expertise. And I guess that's how do you use that logic hammer, as we've always said, and not get defensive.
Yeah, this is an excellent question, and I think it's the crux of this, the entire reason for going through the system. Alan, one of the reasons I'm excited to do a conference again, I've never been so certain that Michael Gerber was right about the system first. I mean, Kennedy even wrote a book, The Ruthless Management of People and Systems. I think it's the ruthless management of the system first that will ruthlessly manage you and I in our emotional state. Okay, let me say it that way. I think it is extremely important to arrive at the math the way that I walked through it. I think that over the course of going through these beats, think about how many there are before the math: the reading, the nickel tour, the sit down, the why are you selling, the 7 steps, and then the evidence. And I don't even like to call it math. I'm going to change that name when I lay this all out for you in a system. It's the evidence.
That's the word I like to use, is here's evidence of what's going on in the market. Because if you say, Matt, I agree with that, and that's something that you've used for years.
Yep.
And I just keep going back to, this is the evidence. This isn't my perception of what's going on. This isn't me. This is the actual evidence of what's currently happening in the market.
Okay, here's another line that I think is a good route for us all. So you become at this point in time, with all of this blood, sweat, and tears you've gone through. Now remember, why do I like the ones, Alan, that we've been with talking to a while? I think it's a big deal that we've had. Like, I love it when it's gone through Autumn, to me, maybe even a little bit more, then it gets to, Laura, even a little bit. I love it when we're really textually in there with them. We've been serving them. Because if I can arrive at their house with that kind of servant mentality already in place, there's some professional context. But man, when they see me walk through this so methodically, they might not even be able to articulate what's been different about me, but they know. And they feel empowered. So I think language is going to matter here as we clean this list up. We have to deal with this math, you and I, tonight. So I'm already including them in a relationship with me based on the math, right? That's what I'm doing. I'm saying, look, we have to sit down and deal with the statistics, the evidence. This is the market evidence. That's really what I would call it. Now I have to deal with the market evidence. So we could even call stage 6 market evidence, because what I just went through is I went through market evidence. But again, Chris, coming back to you, don't get so caught up in one micro piece of it. You got to get up above this stuff and understand this is telling a story about where price could potentially be. And at that moment in time that we took it, it's a static, not a dynamic moment in time. It's static. So here's the evidence that I was able to grab a hold of that the market is providing right now to tell us what's going on. Now, that market update that we talk about so much in this group is also indicating that inventory has been increasing, which tells you what for sellers? Things are slowing. There is more stuff, and that's where days on the market become a big deal. They're part of the story. It's not, did I put them here? They're just part of the story. We should be able to lean back and look at this stuff and just think about it, right? What is it? What is the stuff that we're staring at, and what does it tell us? So, Alan, it's sort of like they have to look at it with you, and everybody has to learn the story. Follow me? So I think if you sit there and let them get to the point where there's an attack mode, that's the technique moment. We have to lean back and let them go off. And none greater than that moment in time where I got assaulted a couple of weeks ago. I got assaulted, right? I mean, he went absolutely ballistic about the math. I mean, he just was almost.
They do that. I get why they do that, because they do that because it doesn't corroborate the value they've set in their mind. And now you've just shot them, and you've just shot them. You didn't intentionally do that, but there's a dissonance between what they were expecting and what the evidence shows. Right. They get defensive.
All right, so let me go back to this. Here we go again with how you set this up. Okay, Laura, I'm going to come back to you and ask you the same thing. How, even though you had to go out there that day and I told you to go right out, how did you set it up? So if you have not asked the question, what do you think it's worth, and pestered them until they give it to you, you set yourself up for a far more difficult moment. So here's another thing I just wrote down in step 6. So when we talk, now that we're done with the 7 steps, I want to get into the market evidence and deal with it. So when we talked, you felt that your value was 1.825. Is that right? Okay. Where did you get that number?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Okay. So just where did you get that number from? How did you arrive at that number? So you could
just looking around the neighborhood, what's been selling, that seems very reasonable.
Okay, good. Wonderful. Because that's similar to how we do it. I'm not going to say that's how we do it.
And the one across the street, and the one across the street, and then the one down the street, they're kind of in that range too.
Okay, good. So
and they're currently on the market.
Okay, good. So stop. Here's what we do. Something similar, but we go deeper than that. Because we can't afford to just generally look at stuff, but we're going to go deeper into the analysis with you now, so that we're going to figure out exactly what it was, because it's very difficult to sit on a curb, stare across at the neighbor, and figure out how we compare price-wise. 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 How we compare price-wise. Got to really get that in your psychology, that you are now into a whole different beat at stage number 6, where you're talking about price. True selling price. How do we find the right asking price based on market evidence, not just what we perceive to be value? We're moving out of perception and into evidence. You have to, even if you have to dramatically state it like that, Alan, you have to put it all in slow motion for them, depending on the level of their emotional attachment to their price and their belief, which will be strong.
Yeah.
Right? So the reason we get defensive is because they get emotional. And we take it all personal and weird. Instead of going to work on being better at our moment here, we just take it personally.
Yeah, I admit that. Because I'm the friggin' expert, and they're basically saying, we don't give a shit what you say. We know better.
I don't know that.
Can I say something?
Yeah. Hang on one second. That's just not my experience. I just don't feel. I don't know how many you've gone out on where you've seen that, but I've gone on quite a few. I get that from
the ones I don't get. The ones I haven't gotten in the past year have been the seller has gotten defensive over the evidence that I've presented.
Sure. All right. Hang on to that.
And they want to.
Think about one anecdote. Think about where it came from. I'm coming back to you. I heard another voice there. Somebody wanted to say something.
It's Heather.
Go ahead, Heather.
Sometimes when I'm talking about this evidence and before I present it, I also just share with them. I try to also legitimize it with talking to them about, unless you get an all cash offer, buyers are needing to deal with lenders, and lenders. Let's talk about how lenders look at value, and that they're looking at what is sold in the last 3 months in particular, within a distance of the home, like in kind. So I have found that has helped legitimize the evidence that's being brought, and telling them that we're looking at the evidence the way a lender is going to look at evidence as well. Now that becomes a little trickier when the market's sliding, but it's also sets it up to where it's important to look at this often through our process. Once we're on.
Yeah, Tony Legendry brought this up to me in something that he wants to do, and I just see some double-edged swords when you go outside of your own expertise, and I want to make them clear. When you say something like our lender or our appraiser. So Tony's doing something with appraisers. You're referencing lenders, which would, assume the appraisal too. Those numbers are dangerous because they're not yours. and they're not necessarily helping you serve your needs in getting this listing secured at the right asking price. I don't mind it. I think it's part of the overall value discussion and how value is ascertained. But I still would say that it is incumbent upon us to really work hard to become the best market makers that we can. So ultimately, in the heat of the moment, when you hang on, Fahad. In the heat of the moment, when you defer that to a lender, okay, or an appraiser, just understand the double-edged sword is you're giving away authority. Okay, you're giving away authority to somebody else. If you want to use authority to validate what you say, I think it's a fair discussion in there. It's subtle, but I want to make that point very clear. Okay, is that?
Hey, Danny?
Yeah, go ahead, Fahad. Being a lender, go ahead.
Hey, Danny. Okay, so yes, I'm actually, ironically, 4 weeks later, I'm on the road, headed to Vegas again for mortgage conference. So I've been on the call for the last 35 minutes. But here's the thing: I agree with what Heather's doing, and I mean, I sort of agree with what you're saying. But you know, like you're saying that she's saying that based on the lender, she's giving away authority. Well, what she could do is just say that, you know, like based on her, you know, her established relationships. You know, from what, you know, because she knows this business inside out. I mean, she sells a lot of property. She represents buyers and sellers. She gets stuff financed. She knows that, you know, because like what I did on my like business cards years ago, because we had an appraiser in the office where I was at. Like he was a licensed appraiser running his own business. So in our thing, we would say, free home evaluations reviewed by licensed appraiser, and we would put that in there because we would do the CMAs, and we would just bounce it off of them and say, hey, you know, does this look legit? And that we could advertise that. We say we have an actual certified licensed appraiser overlooking all of our CMAs. In her instance, she's basically trying to get them to list at a lower price, right? But that's more realistic. For where somebody could get a loan. So she could say is based on, because people are getting loans, like exactly what she's saying, and just say that, something along the lines of she's not giving up authority. She's saying that, that we already know we have these systems in place and, the lenders that we work with or something like that, and just say that it's been reviewed. And that's very easy because we can run, there's AUMs and there's all these tools now where we can put in a property address and adjust for certain conditions, and we get a very good range, and we even know if we can get an appraisal waiver on a certain property. So, So she has, she would have those tools, so she can still keep that claim, and that would help her get lower prices without having to, having to give up any authority. I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, the other 2 cents.
I don't know. I mean, what market is she in? Heather, what market is she in?
San Jose.
I'm in Silicon Valley, and it's
okay, I think we spoke like a year ago or a year and a half ago. But yeah, exactly. So you could totally do that. I mean, that's just my 2 cents because I think it's valid. Like it's just like the whole thing when you do something and you get a home inspection to tell them what's wrong with their house.
Well, first of all, here's what I would do with everybody. I would just say this globally. Y'all need to become better at pricing it right. Period. It is a learnable skill. Happens on Wall Street every day. There's massive amounts of analysis and prediction and things that go on. And I think the good news is there's some simple tools and simple ways to do this, not the least of which is go use the algorithm too. Go look at what Redfin and Zillow are trying to guesstimate. Go to RPR, which is free to all, American realtors, right? So I'm trying to find out where my RPR is. I think I have to go to my Cape Cod and Islands, but the RPR tool. So there's a lot of tools out there that will help you. And again, your adjustment is the in the field adjustment. Okay. So the big data that's out there when it comes to pricing it right is there. It's just not, you're not going to deny it. So Alan, I think in your case, in Lee's case, it's much more about maintaining your own cool when this happens by doing what? By just getting better at this. By finding out why was it that I didn't get this one or that one. So Alan, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to say, go back and think about the one that you didn't get, like Lee's. Let's have a different anecdote. Go back and think about that one. Where did you get them from to begin with? You have to go all the way back to marketing and then conversion.
Both of them came. They're both neighbors. They came from my monthly email. I mean, my monthly postcard that says, "What is your home worth?" And one of them had reached out to me, and basically said I could take her off the mailing list because she wasn't going to sell till she died. And then a month before she decided she needed to be out, she called me and said, "Would you come over and let me know what you think we can get the house sold for?" And then the other one is, again, a neighbor who had been receiving my monthly postcards for, years, for a couple of years now. And he called me and said, "Can you meet me and my wife at our house tomorrow? And we're thinking about putting our house on the market."
Okay. Did you, with both of them, ask them all the seller qualifying questions?
No, I can tell you I did not do that.
Okay, so
both of them called, and I was mobile.
Okay,
so no,
all right,
so
stop.
said, "Sure, I'll meet with you on this date."
Yeah, so stop. Therein lies the problem, and therein lies how we begin to at least eliminate us as the problem. See, in the moment where we don't have a professional system that we know we can rely upon, you're doing it on muscle. And the minute you're doing it on muscle, you're not dramatically demonstrating any differentiation. You just became one of the pack. And so now you have hold on, let me finish. You've put yourself into a game of pricing it right. Bingo. That's what you've done, right? I'm not talking to you. I'm saying to all of us. I did this for years where this didn't really hit me, that how right Gerber was when you really look at this, right? When you really look at this and you say, okay, Alan, if you can go back in time, a lot of smart people that have been in this business who were systematically driven, right? Not the least of which were Ferry to Proctor to us, right? There's a lot of roots in what they do. Well, those guys, both in particular, were systematic people, okay? That's what they were. So when you get into this and you start to look at it that way, you say, well, wait a minute. I already know that the Ferries of the world have asked a lot of questions. That now their bent was a little bit more to back you into motivation and timing, where mine is not to just get that. I want to know why, really, why are you doing this? What is your true motivation? What's your scale? Where's your head at, right? And then what do you think about value? How the heck did you get that value, right? And then
if you think you're dead, you think you're dead in the water when you, because I asked both of them, we did the nickel tour, and both of them, as we sat back down and I started to go through the 7 points, my 7-point seller, listing presentation. At one point in there, I asked both of them. I said, "What do you think your home is worth?" And both of them had a value, and they were all like really high based on what I knew I was going to be presenting them. And both of them, I said, "And how did you arrive at that value?" One guy was, the house 3 doors down, the LeBlanc's house sold at $575 3 years ago, and I think mine's as good as theirs. And I said, okay, well, we'll look at what's going on in the market now, when we get to that point. But I did not ask them on the phone, but I did ask them as we were sitting at the table going through information, what did they think their house would sell for?
Okay. All right. A little late, because you could have manipulated your information to cheat towards theirs, but to show them it wasn't. Let me just show you one of the tools that we all have available. So this RPR function is available, I think, to everybody. And I think, Sarah Corey, you're on here. I don't know in Canada what they have for valuation. But inside the Cape Cod and Islands Association of Realtors, from my MLS on the Cape, it's built in where we just can click this. Well, this was my own house, okay? This was my own house. Now, I had this belief that I stole this property. I did. I cut off the property next door and we built this little house over here. Well, we didn't. I sold the lot off, and a friend of mine built this house over here, et cetera, right? So I was in a neighborhood that I was certain that my house would go pretty quickly over time up to the 1.6, 1.7 range. My neighbors thought they were over 2 million. Well, we weren't even close. Okay. And everybody had to have a major reduction. So Zillow and Redfin also had these things up at 1.6, 1.7, etc. The assessed value is crawling up there. Well, if you really look at what happened, my house needed still a lot of updates. I did a lot and it still needed a lot. And that's why I was like, I got to get out of here. This deal is dangerous. I got to get out of here. So I did a few things. I was willing to upgrade the septic because I had plenty of room on the property. The septic was failed. I upgraded it to 4, and I said that in my listing sheet. But until I got right on top of the market, I want you to see this, that the sold price per square foot is $320. My marketplace, my market update is telling me it's about $323 to $329. I am right on the price per square foot. Okay, right on it, like in the bullseye. So the math didn't lie. Now the good news is I took my own advice and I finally lowered it down to the last list price of 1,395 on 9/22. Okay, and I sold it June 28th. Okay, so, I'm sorry, it wasn't 9/22/2018. That's not right. It's 2019. Why that says that, I don't know. So yeah, that's weird. See, so the data still screwed up. But anyway, at the end of the day, when did I lower that? Do you know, Laura? Laura?
I can look on MLS, the history. I don't remember.
That's probably when you went on the market.
Yeah, but anyway, here's the point. Like, it probably is, Lee, and that's what I'm just trying to see. But see, this, like here, this stuff doesn't lie. You just can't get away from this. Like, what's really happening? I mean, I was spot on for what I should be. We'd done one bathroom upgrade. We'd done a kitchen upgrade, and a lot of the other stuff wasn't done. I don't know if the pictures would tell it, but like, it just, like, there's the kitchen upgrade. So you can see we did a TV show around that. So that was pretty, first class, beautiful old pine floors and stuff, blah, 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 right? But at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff wasn't upgraded. And so, these are the things that we all have to deal with, like in little minute details. And you got to go through this with people. You have to really, really, really dig into this stuff and really be paying attention to this, like, micro detail of pricing. And when you do, it serves you extremely well, including I wanted to move. I needed to go to Boston, where I'm sitting today, and build my business. And this house was a burden. And I had bought an investment property that, we could downsize into that was beautiful. And, so we did, right? So we did. And so I think ultimately at the end of the day, I was a motivated seller for all the right reasons. And I did the right thing and came to the right conclusion. So if we don't get people in our pipeline, look at Autumn is on the phone today with a new directive and a new understanding, like her own directive. She now understands that we can't just take all these listings. If somebody is not truly listening to us, truly motivated, we shouldn't have taken this first guy, but we wanted to learn on him. 90 days, he gives us, and he's not really motivated. It's his blood, sweat, and tears. He's married to the house more than he is his wife, right? He's a small builder. So, like, we knew that. We knew that going in. And the truth is, we probably shouldn't have taken the listing. So, Alan, there are occasions where the process and the system will begin to warn you. And you might have been in those situations, but you don't know it for sure yet until you stop cheating the process. You follow me? See where I'm coming from?
So if you talk to them on the phone, they call you and you're mobile, and you can't answer all those questions on that questionnaire, then do you just call them back, say, hey, I'll get into my office, I'll call you back, and we can set it,
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I mean, even though Laura was going out there the next day, 100%. I mean, you can't let the tail wag the dog. You can't just run out there when there's a serious process on the sell side. I mean, I can make a case for the buy side, have a buyer package ready to go with a buyer infographic, a market update, and not only that listing you're going out with, but others around it and some stuff that is sold. That's a pretty straightforward thing that you can go out and deal with, right? However, I would say, gosh, you got to be super careful not to cheat the sell side, because that's how critical these steps are. So you see, I think this is I still have the wrong one. It's on the website. I was going to show you the
It
quote.
is amazing how even agents don't understand the math.
Yeah, like
No,
what?
they pull this stuff out of their ass. They go by the tax value, or they just let the owners tell them, well, we want 165 for the house. They go, okay, we'll list it at 165. Because you start asking the agents how they got to that value when you're trying to sell it, they can't tell you. What did I overlook? Do you have some comps to support that? I can't find anything to support your sales price.
Okay,
They have nothing.
But guys, so again, it's the process that sets you up to deal with that problem. It's the process. Because what they recognize is that those other people didn't do what you just did. But the minute you do it haphazardly and you're frustrated because you have done work, like, for example, on this Mastermind, we spend 90 minutes beating on a listing presentation and its pieces. 90 minutes. Most people don't spend that in a year. We do it week after week after week. So I get your frustration. But again, the rubber meets the road in practice. Did you go out and practice this exactly as a group? We're doing it to protect ourselves. This is precisely why we're going to lock down for 2 days in Boston. Are you being strategic or not? You can understand it at a super high level and then not execute it strategically. That's my point. Okay? That's my point. Is that the minute you cheated the seller qualifying questionnaire, you cheated yourself an opportunity to see if you had your hands filled, right? You don't know. So you're just excited that he thought about you. And I fully understand that. So am I when they call up. But I've been doing it for so long now that I'm far more cautious about it. And I don't get excited like that anymore. I absolutely would say, don't send me there until you've gone through these questions and you fully understand it. So Laura, coming back to you, did you ask the guy the questions?
Yeah.
Okay. And what did he say about price?
He said he had no clue.
Okay.
And when we went over pricing, he was pleased. He was pleased to have the net sheet. He's a CPA when he worked. He's now retired. So numbers for him were talking his language. So it all went smoothly on that. I mean, the whole thing went smoothly, but I think I'm probably my biggest critic. So because doing listing presentations aren't something that I'm 100% comfortable with yet, I think the more I hear you talk and how you handle it, that's probably how I've learned the most over the years.
Yeah. Well, but now see what we have to do. See the seller qualifying questionnaire, Cloud CMA, the net sheet, how we do our technical analysis, right? All this is conversion stuff. So the next thing that we do, listing package checklist, which will include now what I will put in here, is I will build the seven beats and the key talking points. But Alan, see, as I continue to get this all, organized, right? So let's just scroll this up. Let's take it right here, okay? So when you come in here and you take a look at this, here's my point. This is part of it. Like, this is a key component to this whole thing, right? So let me just open it. I just want to make sure I have the new one. This is the new one, okay? I want you to understand how micro this is. I just went through 7 beats, once we get in the house. I'm trying to give you, I don't know why this is black and white, but let me just show you what we did, okay, to make this even better. So this qualifying questionnaire, why are you thinking about selling, is the repetitive beat that's in the house when we first sit down, right? So the sit down, that's the first question. Why? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you? We repeat those same things because they will support what they help create. So the more that they repeat their story out loud, this is when you can determine whether you even should go there yet or not.
Yeah, so you're asking them these questions, the questionnaire, before you go out, and then when you're in the house, you're going over the questions again.
For sure, depending on, like this is a great sheet. Look at, here's what this really is. This is a cheat sheet for the 7 bullet points of the LP, right? The listing press. This is the cheat sheet because I can have this in my folder open. Okay. And I'll look back and forth. So, all right. So why are you thinking about selling again? You were telling Autumn it was you have to move to Florida because there's a doctor down there. Son, is that right? So I can be specific. I can show them we were paying attention. I can show them the value of my telemarketing department saying, remember, she asked you this? This is why, because now I need to know. And so what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10? You told her a number. What would you say it was again? I might not even say it to them. I might want to have them repeat it themselves again. Why'd you pick that number? How come not a 10? How come only an 8? Whatever. Okay. So now see, I don't have to get into when you buy it, what'd you pay for it until I get into the math. Cool. I might even reorder these the more I'm thinking about it to be aligned with the listing presentation. So this very cheat sheet is there for me in the same order to support those beats. You follow? See, we always have these disjointed sections of how we do what we do. Why? It's the same thing. See, the same reason and Laura, by the way, you and I have to talk about the leads we're getting in Boston and immediately get that package out to those people, right? To probably give them the whole thing and then to call. But everything should precede the next step, setting it up correctly. See, too many of you from your marketing to what you say on the phone is completely disjointed. You'll randomly get an offer, out there and randomly get a lead and then say something that's disjointed on a telemarketing script. Do you see the problem? Your system is disjointed. It is not interconnected smoothly. You're not conditioning these people, Alan, to behave a particular way. Follow me? This is controlled. You're controlling their behavior in a benevolent way, of course, but you're controlling their behavior. Stop behaving like an incorrigible child who's stuck on a number and a commission. Stop. Behave this way. So this is like cognitive behavioral therapy if done correctly. That's what systems do at their best. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what does it also do? It controls your behavior so you don't screw it up. So I don't screw it up. So that Laura doesn't screw it up. Autumn. We keep cheating towards what we believe and we cherry pick. So when you cherry pick, you opened up 17 different ways that they could screw you up because you didn't control it. So what we have to try to do is eliminate every little micro step mistake we make so that we are in the power position to decide whether or not they're right for us and to know walking out of every presentation, dang, that was good. I gave a good one, but he's a jerk. See what I'm saying? You can say that only when you've gotten yourself probably to like an A- level. I think if you get yourself to an A- level, now you're making tweaks by learning. You always make mistakes. That's why I would never give anybody 100%, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
So here's what you were missing.
Well, this is Lee's fault because he brought it up the other day, so he needs to chime in.
Yeah, but I love it because look at, this is my obsession right now. Telemarketing, supported by wonderful direct mail marketing, aka bomb-like marketing, kicks you off into the ability to ask these questions, to then book the appointment, to go in and do the appointment to the best of your ability. That whole entire section right there could change your life if you'll obsess over it with me, right?
I do like that idea of maybe rearranging the questions to the beats on the info on the.
Yeah, I'll line them up.
Infographic.
That's why I wanted to do this call. I'm glad we actually ran out of time last time because you need time for this. Those beats are clear. So what became clear to me today? See all these questions, Lee? It's almost as if where could we reinsert them in the 7 beats so that even if we need to go to our cheat sheet, geez, I forgot to ask the guy this. Let me go back and do it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, because like that, just the 1 to 0, 1 to 0, like you said, you can either ask why you at 7, or ask what they're at, and then if they say different number, just to go into it with them.
Yep, cool.
And get a feeling where they're motivated.
All right, I've got some people: John Parasek, Laura Reckmeyer, Sonia, David Whitehead, Eugene. Egan's, you can come back around. And I don't know if that's Paul out in Washington, but and Laura. All of you have been on for the whole time, or at least part of it. That was significant enough to hear what I said. Questions, thoughts? I want to hear what you're thinking as you sit here and you look at this.
Alan said he's buying drinks in Boston.
What?
You said you're buying drinks in Boston.
Well, the airfare got booked today, so we're on our way.
Awesome. All right, come on, the rest of you that I just called out. Come on, it's a mastermind. Come on, talk to me.
Well, the biggest thing I think is just trying to get an idea of what they want. That price, it's so key.
Yeah.
Because then you can either combat it, or you can I'm definitely a lot more successful when I get that number before I go out there.
Yeah, and why do you think, David? Like, dig deeper. Like, think about the times where you have gotten it. I actually don't like it when people say, "I have no idea." I'll actually say, "Can you take a wild guess?"
Well, because they're lying to you, first of all.
I agree.
Because they do have an idea.
I agree.
They do have an idea.
And I just think that, yeah, go ahead.
So it's that rule that he who speaks first loses. It's that old-timey rule that my dad used to say. So that's why they sit there, especially these older people, sit there and say, "I don't have a clue." That's what you're here for. You know, they do have a clue, but they're not going to speak because they're afraid, what if they tell you a value that's really less than it's worth? And the agents, we're whores. We're just going to say, "Sure, we can sell it for $500. It's worth $8."
Yep, exactly. And I think too that, like, when they say it out loud too, when they actually tell you, it's like it's a little bit of a trust too, you know. And also, like, it's just so hard to go out there because it's like, well, okay, so what do you want me to pull a dartboard out and throw something? Like, what do you want? You know, because, you know, because it's not always cut and dry based off looking at comps and the pricing of the property and where it's at, you know, especially with the condition.
Yeah. So again, I like what you're both saying, because I think you're exactly right. They do have some sense of value. Nobody's in the dark. And like Laura, I'll come back to you. Don't let them off the hook. I mean, you don't want to get argumentative, but like say, look, I want to be thoroughly prepared for our meeting. And part of our meeting is going over the market evidence. I'd like to see what market evidence supports your price. I'm going to write all this down for you in this, this whole thing, but I'd like to see what market evidence supports your
normally,
price.
Danny, I do. I usually, because honestly, 90% of the time when I ask that question, people tell me they don't know. And I keep pushing. This specific guy, he was the sweetest little old man. And, we had a good, rapport going back and forth on the phone and at the house. So I kind of just made the executive decision to just leave it there. And he did not push back on me at all with price. I think he really was looking to be led. And that's what I did. So, but I agree, it is important in that 90% of the time they do have some sort of number in mind.
I would say he had it. I would say you fell to his wonderful charm, and you had to be careful of that. And I get it. I've done the same. I've let them lull me to sleep with their sweetness and their niceties, and make me feel comfortable. And comfort is the danger for the professional real estate agent. It just is. I would say, if you had a nice feeling for him and a sweetness, play with him a little bit. Say, "Oh, come on, just give me one guess," right? Give me a guess, because I'd like to look at the market. I'd like to bring some market evidence that supports it, right? So because in each section of this, you're trying to get them to read their mind aloud, because again, they will support what they help create. The more this becomes a lecture and a dictation, why do you think I always try to extract commentary from all of you? You'll support these calls more if they're interactive. It's just the way it is. It's the way humans interact. I get it that you trust me and you'll let me go there, but the more important thing for me is to hear what you're thinking, because I don't know where you're awry. I know what I'm trying to do. So it's the same thing with them. Got to get in there, because it makes you all feel uncomfortable to ask questions that really matter. But you'll be the first one pissed off when it doesn't go your way. Make sense?
Hey, Danny, it's Paul.
Go ahead, Paul.
I would just say it was a really good call. I'm glad I did it because tomorrow afternoon, we're having a meeting. I invited all the agents to come in and watch me do a market analysis, present to one of them in front of the others. And I'm glad I was on the call because it's way, way different than what I'm doing. And like we talked about, I'm kind of doing it on muscle. I get them when I go on them, but it's not all systematic like yours at all. So it's good stuff. I'll probably have to.
Well, Paul, at the beginning, Paul, at the beginning of the call, this is what I said, and I've gone through this with, I think, Marcus, Ron. I mean, there's a lot of people that in here that will just dismiss me and say, "Yeah, but mine works." But you couldn't teach it to anybody. You couldn't teach it to anybody. I get it, and I also did it that way for years, and it wasn't the best of me for the consumer. Okay, I get them, sure, but there's so many reasons why we get them. Not the least of which is we have a good telemarketing department. We send out some good materials. We ask some questions. We arrive. We're the only ones acting professionally. But our benchmark is, what is the best system for the consumer? That's the benchmark, right? That's it. So again, if you remember that everybody is busy, everybody has this human brain that melts down relatively quickly. If you just are in there bullshitting with them, you run risks of them melting down, even though they love you. That's the biggest, scariest thing of this. Go ahead.
I think the only reason it works for me is because I can rely on the fact that I've been in the business for 20 years, and the fact that most of the people that I work with are older and they want to just sit around and chit-chat for an extra 45 minutes, which I don't mind doing. I like listening to them. They have interesting stories and stuff, but no, I can't teach that, obviously. It's not replicatable for someone who's been in the business for less than a year at all.
Okay, so what did I say to you? Let's segue into that. We'll spend a few more minutes here. What I said to you, Paul, was, and why I brought up on the helpline, all this behind the scenes stuff for agents, and I went through the basics with my agents today. We're building a better agent plan. You can't retain agents like that either. You won't win all the sellers correctly. You won't set them up for the best process correctly, and you'll lose agents over time. Why? Not because they don't like you, but because they're lost. And the minute it takes too many calories to stay with you, and they feel like it takes less to go over to somebody else like a KW or whatever they believe, they're gone. So the key is to say, look, by coming here, we teach you to expend the least amount of brain cells helping a buyer and seller. And we do it with these very simple plans, which is essentially the productization of what makes us unique, which is guidance. We put the right stuff in the right order. Well, a fifth grader could understand that, right? So as the agent comes in, they're too smart, number one. And so you get to simplify it. And they feel empowered, like, oh my gosh, finally, somebody made this easy for me. So there is no difference, as we look at it, Paul, as leaders, there's no difference than in the way that we talk to buyers, sellers, or agents. We must be simple, and it must empower them. Now, if it didn't work, that'd be another thing. But I walk through this, and I get the feedback from all of you. When people stick to these beats and they walk through this systematically, they're just having an easier time. Anida just told me the other day, said, I used to go through this other thing that had more slides and laptops. Now I just put the infographic across the table. It's so easy. They like it. It's easier on me. That's my goal. I don't want Paul Cantu walking into a house, burning all these calories in his brain every single time. And that's why I kept bragging, 45 minutes. I was finding a rhythm, and they were fully empowered. And I knew they were some of the best listing presentations I'd given because Autumn got the feedback. And I knew I got the feedback, and they were just easier. And I could take that time management to a whole other level. Instead of 2 hours in a house babbling and trying to connect, I had connected, but professionally. The way I want to be. I don't need to be your best friend, and you don't want me to be your best friend. You want me to come in and show you that I give you the best chance to win, period, paragraph. And you'll know the truth if I do it correctly. So that's my feeling, Paul, is that if you really take all these mentors that we've had, that it's, most of them are dead now, but like if it's Einstein saying the simplest solution is really the best one, right? Make it, his thing was really heady. He said, make it as simple as you can without being too simple. And what he meant was, like, if you look at the 7-point strategy, Paul, for example, and you took out, let's just say, communication, you just took that out. You went from marketing to negotiation. You would have missed the opportunity to explain to them what it's like to make a market for a property when you're going back and forth with co-broks, which is the entirety of how this business works. That's the linchpin for most people. A lot of people that expired got that far, had offers, had some communication, couldn't get an offer because they didn't know what the adjustments were. So if you took that out, it's too simple. So it's like sort of this Goldilocks approach to management. What is just enough and still fully effective? That's where I'm coming from, right? And if it's on muscle, it is absolutely not duplicatable. It will never be a system. And you'll scratch your head saying, why do these agents keep coming and leaving me? Because you had nothing simplified that you could teach them. And they will never be you. You can never teach them how you do what you do, and how you learned. We frankly learned incorrectly because nobody sat our butts down and simplified it. So here we are, right? I think that's the point, Paul.
I agree, definitely.
All right. We have a campfire week this week, right, Laura? 3:00?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I will, I was at Cellar last time, right, Laura? Was I at Cellar last time?
I think I'll have to double check the Facebook page.
Or Agent Plan. Okay.
Actually, I think you were on Agent.
I think so too.
That
So I'm going to get your agents on here, your telemarketers on here in 15 minutes, and I will walk through this in a much shorter version. Okay. I'll just stay this. We went deep here. I'll reiterate it at 3:00 for all the teams. And Paul, Lee, anybody who wants to come for round 2, I'll slow it down just on the 7 points without all the background. Okay? Cool?
Danny, this is a side note. You might want to talk to Officio because I only booked you for this call. I forgot about Campfire.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll ask him.
Okay.
All right, gang. That's enough of this round.
Hey, Danny, real quick. What time is your campfire?
3:00. 15 minutes.
3 o'clock Eastern Standard. It's the same call-in number and everything?
Yes, it is, right? Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, buddy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm on the road, so I'll just call in then. Okay,
Perfect. Okay, bud. See you later. All right, good call, everybody.
Okay, bye. Later.
See you in 15.
Get your wallet ready, Alan.
All righty.